Dr. Faran Ahmed is a fellow of infectious diseases and critical care medicine at Creighton University Medical Center in Nebraska, Omaha, USA. So, Dr. Faran, firstly, tell us about yourself.
So, my journey is a bit different. I'm not like those who are motivated for USMLE right from their third year. Yeah, so we actually wanted to stay in Pakistan. And we started our internship in medicine, you know, and the way the medicine was being practiced was not the way it is in the books, right? So you learn the books, but you don't practice it, right? And when we were in communication with our seniors who were in US, we figured out that those are, they learn it and they practice it. And that's how we learned medicine. It was not related to, oh, I will go to US, I will earn dollars and all that stuff. It's about like how you learn the standardized stuff. So that's what motivated. So our journey was a bit late. So it was kind of atypical. Having said that, we didn't have a benefit of electives. We were not that much connected to US and all that stuff. And and me and Vikas, we finished our house job. And right at the end of the house job, we just took our USMLE. And even then we were not sure because this pathway, I'll let this is not like a fairy tale that it's not like the moment you pick up your step one book, you're matched in US. It's very complicated. It's very tough. It's difficult. It's difficult at every step. And that's the reality check. I want to spread this message and tell everyone that it is not like the moment you pick up step one book, you're matched in US, but it's step by step. So what happened that, we took our step one, we timed it with FCPS part one so that, keeping the backups, that is so important. It's a combined effort. While you work on USMLE, while you do the research, while you try to go to US, all that stuff, you have to be there. So as soon as we finished our step one, we sat 6 months more, took our step two. Visa was a hurdle. So I represent a group of physicians who face every kind of hurdle at every step. Fast forward, we match in a community program after this kind of hurdle. And that's what I'm trying to explain, that if you start thinking about USMLE early, that helps you to gather more US clinical experience, that helps you to get more publications on board, and that way you can get into the good universities. So I would say my struggle continued till the third year of the residency, but I was still trying to figure out where I will end up. And this struggle continues. When I was at the end of my second year, everyone was applying for the fellowship. And I was like, the fellowship is good, but there are a lot more bigger issues like immigration, how your family will be there. It's not like bread and butter for everyone. It's tough. There are financial constraints. So we have to, look into those options where we can stabilize our visa status and all that stuff. So that's how, it was all based on benefit versus risk discussion at every point.
Okay, thank you for that from Dr. Faran Ahmed. Your experience just shows how valuable your input will be today on our panel discussion. For Dr. Faran, we've seen that step 2 CK is going to be gaining importance as compared to step 1. So one really common question that we've had is, what do we think about giving step 2 CK before step 1? Because a lot of people have decided that they want to give step right now, but they want to wait until January so that after January, they can give step 1 with 3 to 4 months preparation, and instead they can dedicate these months to step 2 CK prep. So what do you think on that?
It can go both ways. There are a bunch of students who want to plan their step 1 right during their graduation. It's a good thing for them. They don't have to chase the high score, and if they are getting a reasonable numbers on their UWorld, they can take their step 1 early on, and they can time their CK right after their final year. I mean, I think it just did a lot better. However, if someone has never read step 1 course that much and want to take this USMLE series right after graduation, I think the right time is to start focusing on step 2 CK upfront, because they have a good baseline skeleton already built up based on their final year. The way this course in Pakistan, the way the MBBS is designed, the CK is a more suitable exam right after the graduation, and they can work on it. And once they are done, it will give them a boost. And if they get a good scores, it's not like like before, What used to happen that you clear your step 2 CK, you have a good score, but no, there is a big mountain to climb of step 1 scores. So I think it's beneficial, and overall, it's a great thing.
The first impact that COVID had was that in-person step 2 CS exam was cancelled. It was postponed, and eventually it was discontinued indefinitely. So now I'd like to ask Dr. Faran about the step 2 CS exam, and what do you think the cancellation is going to, how is it going to impact?
This is a very important, very important case. I was in contact with so many graduates who were right there in US waiting for their step 2 CS, and then the exam got cancelled. They had to go back. They could not take their CS. Unfortunately, they could not match. And last year was total mess. I would totally say it's just so horrible. Now, so we know there are pathways, and we know there are ways to evaluate it. They just added pathway 6 and all those stuff. And I think I may not have to repeat all that stuff because it's there on the websites, and we can take a look how one can be eligible if the CS is not part of the application. The more important thing that I just want to highlight today, and I came to know yesterday, there is a coalition of physician accountability in US, and ECFMG is part of it. And just yesterday, uh, they published 42 recommendations. So these recommendations were not there last year, and these recommendations are based on all these feedback they got from the programs, they got from the residents. Now, I will share the link of these 42 recommendations, and I will let you know this is going to be a revolutionary change how they're looking at it. And I'm going through all these recommendations right now. They starts from the right from the med school. So they named it as an undergraduate medical education and graduate medical education review committee recommendations. These are 42 recommendations. So what are the? Let me just take a few minutes to describe that, what is happening right now and how they are going to address this. So these 42 recommendations, number one, they are trying to address, to establish an equality between the med schools across the globe. Because what is happening that now when you apply for the US residency spots, you have the graduates from all across the globe, and they are trying to come up with, a standardized way of evaluating these med students. So that means that this committee recommended a standardized MSPE, and that is so important. When we apply for the residency match, I didn't know that there's something called MSPE until I opened up the application, and US graduates work on the MSPE so early. So when we say try to work on your CV, that doesn't just mean that work on your publication. If you take a look at the ERAS application, it has so many other components, and MSPE is part of it. So they are going to standardize the MSPE, and it will be a standardized MSPE so that all of the med school will have the same parameters to evaluate the students. Next comes the ERAS application. They're going to review it, and it will be more subjective, more measurable parameters, not like you're going to write the whole paragraph that I did this and I invented this and all that stuff. That doesn't work. You can write whatever in your CV. It will be more objective. They did not share what exactly they will do, but there will be changes. Then come these exams. CS. If someone has not taken CS, they have recommended how to evaluate the clinical evaluation practices of various med schools across the globe. Like our med schools, what is happening in our OSCE. So they will standardize that. So that may impact us. As I was referring to those recommendations, this is kind of a breaking news, I would say. So previously we used to have letter of recommendations, and what I see in these recommendations, they are replacing that letter of recommendation with a structured evaluation letter, So that's another big change. That tells me two things. Number one, CS may not be coming back pretty soon. Number two, the way people used to get the letters, there was a lot of difference. Few people get so many, like 3-4 pages letters, for some reason. Few are like really lagging behind, particularly the IMGs who did not get enough opportunity to be in US. Now, I'm not sure what this structured evaluation letter will be, but the recommendation number 13 highlights that the structured evaluation letter should replace the letter of recommendation as a universal tool in the residency program application process. So, that's an emerging thing that we will be seeing, and we'll get to know more about this pretty soon. I think it will take them a couple of months to elaborate on this.
I'd like to pose this question to Dr. Faran, if you could give your idea and thoughts on the electives and COVID.
I think what is happening that the in-person electives are being getting complicated just because uh, COVID, pandemic, restrictions, all that stuff. And many of the students are getting in touch with me that they are not able to get the elective application approved so early and all that stuff. It's a tough situation, hard to comment early on, but I think what we can do right now, all those places where the med students used to get the electives, they can always request the coordinators, is there any way they can join through the virtual sessions? There are possibilities, and the programs are trying to design their electives in such a way. So that's what I would focus on, that if you're not able to come to US just because of the visa restrictions and you are in communication with some university, you can always explore that option.
Okay. And about the electives and COVID, you've mentioned tele-rotations. So one question that is very commonly asked is the value of a tele-rotation, provided that they will be giving an LOR as well. But is a tele-rotation looked down upon compared to an in-person rotation? Or because of the situation and the circumstances, do program directors tend to understand?
I think there will be a reasonable bias as compared to someone who physically came in, saw the patient, shadowed the team, was part of the care and all that stuff, as compared to someone who just did telerotation. But in this situation, it's better than nothing. Is it
Okay,
okay if I add a bit of point here? I'm sorry, I just jumping in. So we talk a lot about US electives, but let's just get back to see what are the components of ERAS application. And there's a whole big lot of tables about what kind of publications that we did, right? Now, when I say publication, and I don't know if you have any questions about this, but I just got highlighted. I really like the way or both other participants highlighted the importance of publication. I think once we are in a situation we are not able to come physically to US, we have to focus on what other aspects of the application we can amplify. And the bigger part is publication. Now, let me just dissect this part. When we say research and publication, people get overwhelmed and start thinking about that complex statistics and everything that involved and all that research complexity. No, that is just only one component of that publication session. If you look at the IDAS application, there are like 4 other components, right? So what I did when I was applying for the fellowship, I started dissecting what are the other sections. For example, right now, if you're doing this session, you can write a good blog about it, and then at least try to publish it somewhere, and that becomes a part of your application. I share my experience. I was at IDSA, ID Week, and one person literally, he was there, and he was just going from one session to other session, another session. He just wrote his experience and put it up for the publication, and that got accepted as a viewpoint, right? So that is so different. You have to approach the things in a very different way, the way the application is built up. So if I went back in time and what I would have done differently, for example, if a person is doing a volunteer work in Pakistan as a part of some society, we have to make that thing practical and part of our ERAS application. How does that work? You can write down a good, nice article about it, get it published somewhere in some journal. It may have some sort of even link, like DOI to it, right? And that becomes a part of your application. The more, so when you take a look at so I interview the fellowship applicants, right? We get the letter of recommendations, and since I have been the part of this process, I know how the letter of recommendations are generated. I know that, but also I want to see what else they did. When I look at the list of publications that they did, that reflects what kind of applicant that is. It is just a holistic view of the whole, the research experience of that applicant. It's not about just working on statistics and all that stuff. There are many other aspects. So I just want to highlight that part as well.
Informed, because we did ask for questions then as well, and these were all questions that were asked there. And one last question that I would like to touch upon before the Q&A begins is, for early stage medical students, we're talking first, second, third, maybe fourth year medical students, what are the positive medical student activities that one can do? How much is the benefit of doing society work, doing volunteer work in Pakistan? So Dr. Faran, if you could give your input on that, please.
So I will just reflect how the US first year med school students are doing right now. So since it's pandemic and most of them were not able to, rotate with many of the programs as frequent as they used to. So what they are doing, and I'm getting all these requests from the first year and second year med students to, uh, they want to join me in writing case reports. So that's one thing, your seniors who are like in the, whether in US or in even in Pakistan and trying to publish something and doing their FCPS, these first year and second year med students, they can even help them. It doesn't mean they write the clinical aspect, just a bit of lit search or something that just adds their name to these case reports. This is just the beginning of publication. This just first step to how you build your resume. It's hard for them to do the clinical rotation, right? If someone of them is like really enthusiastic and can write blogs, excellent. If not, I think that's the first step that they can do. They can pair with people who are already preparing for the USMLEs or who are already working on these sort of projects. That's one thing I will recommend. The other aspect is, and that is related to the kind of content they read. And I can totally understand the difficult aspect on that part, that our examination system is not consistent with the USMLE. So, but anyway, I think that what they can do is select the right set of books to this. I will just add about the house job aspect. We really undermine this part, but I just reflect, so it helps you at all level of your training in the US. So when I was interviewing for my infectious disease and critical care fellowship training program, right? So that goes to the same matching process. And I was so surprised that there's a whole big lot of tropical infectious diseases which are not in US. So many programs wanted to ask me that what kind of infectious diseases I managed or evaluated back when I was in my house job. My program director still asks me about how you manage the dengue pandemic, how you manage the malaria all across the Punjab. He knows a lot about geography. It's not like the program directors who are born in US, they don't know what is happening outside US. They know a lot. So, and the way you portray this, that reflects. That's how you sell it. You are kind of your own sales manager. So you just have to tell them. So that's where I support. If you are doing a house job, and that is just to help securing your backup in Pakistan, it not only helps there, it helps with your interview taking skills. If you are just sitting in the library taking exams, on the day of interview, you will have no case or no clinical scenario to discuss if it comes to that point. You are really, I've met many students who are preparing for the residency interviews, and they were asking me that, oh, what I will say when they will ask me that if you have managed ever any interesting case. Those who never been in part of US, they had nothing to say there, unfortunately. So that's where, it not only helps you to groom your clinical skills, it also helps to address various part of the interview section where you are asked about it.
Information to all of us. So from myself, Sean Kesser, and from the team at IFMSA, we would like to show our immense gratitude to all three of you for um, providing your help and valuable time. And I'd also like to thank the audience for being a good audience and